from Canterbury Trails Farm, and today we're going to be talking about the aloe vera plant. A lot of you are probably familiar with the aloe vera plant because it's used to treat sunburn. You might have had a grandmother that would cut off a piece of it and smear it all over you when you had sunburn. That's what it's primarily known for, sort of like an emergency natural first aid for sunburn. But the aloe vera plant has a lot of uses. Let's go back in history and talk about when aloe vera first was documented to be used, and that was with, of course, the Egyptians. The aloe vera plant has a lot of different names. You've probably heard of burn plant, medicine plant, first aid plant, miracle plant. The Native Americans have a lot of different names for it as well. The word aloe comes from the Arabic aloe, A-L-L-O-E-H, which means a shining, bitter substance, and vera comes from the Latin, which means true. So it was a true medicinal substance that could be used and was known to help wounds heal and help skin conditions. It is known today, now that we have science and medicine and we can go test these ancient methods, and we know that the plant is antibacterial, it's antiviral, it has anti-inflammatory properties, and it has a decreased histomatic activity. I'm not going to get too deep into the science, but the way the aloe heals, it increases the number of fibroblasts in the body, and those are the most common type of cell in the connective tissues, which is like the dermis and the skin. So these fibroblasts help close wounds and actually create skin cells. So the aloe polysaccharides, the glucosamine is the main one, and those increase the number of the little cells that we need to heal our wounds in our skin. So rashes, scratches, not real deep cuts, shallow cuts, burns of all sorts, and sunburn especially. If you're getting into a super bad burn where you've like cracked the skin and there's blood and tissue involved, you should never take that matter into your own hands. You need to seek medical care. But if it's a topical burn, a steam burn from cooking, something that maybe is a few light blisters, that's fine to treat topically with the aloe vera plant. Historically, people have ingested the aloe vera plant. It has laxative qualities, and there's a whole list of things that people claim, and some studies have proven that it will help digestively, but I stick to just the topical uses of the aloe vera. I have a lot of other medicinal herbs that I prefer for ingesting that are more of like a tea, because this is very difficult to work with. It's very slimy, and there's really no real good way to extract the slimy inner parts of the aloe vera. With that, it's just sort of you just have to keep working at it. A lot of people just, when you're using it for first aid, you can just cut off. You always want to cut off the ones at the bottom, because the ones that grow closer to the soil are the older ones. And you can just sort of squish it, just like a tube of toothpaste, and apply it in that way. But if you're trying to extract all of the materials from the frond or the leaf, whatever you want to refer to it as, pups, I think is what they call the new ones. But you'll need to remove this outer green covering. And it's a succulent, a perennial succulent, belongs to the lily family. So if you have any known allergies to flowers, if you're prone to allergies from flowers, you probably should avoid a lot of aloe vera. I'm not going to say it will cause you problems, but you probably should experiment on like your wrist or something to see if you're going to have any kind of reaction before you apply it to an already damaged skin situation like a burn. Aloe vera has been used to treat acne because it has astringent properties, but it also has properties that help loosen hardened dead skin cells, so it sort of moisturizes but yet it also dries out the oils, the bad oils that are in the pores. Usually the way you sort of counteract the astringent properties is by adding another oil like a vitamin E or a jojoba oil that will sort of counteract the astringent drying qualities and bring out those good qualities in the aloe vera that you want to moisturize. But it really sort of needs a balancer when you're using it to create facial creams and other creams for your body besides just applying raw and by itself to a burn. The aloe vera grows well in zones 8 to 11. It prefers hot, dry climates. In fact, it's very drought hardy. It can survive long periods of time without water. The way you should water it is wait for the soil to dry out to your touch and then water it. I leave mine outside in the summer because we live in Texas. It's hot, it's dry, and it likes it out there. But in the winter, I bring it into the garage or somewhere into the house because it is not very frost hardy. It doesn't like cold temperatures. And because it's a succulent, it's mostly water, so it's not going to freeze well. It's going to rot. That's the other reason why you want to make sure you got it in a really good pot or soil that's draining, because it will rot very easily. Since it's already so much water, if it gets too waterlogged, it's just sort of going to turn black, moldy, and pulpy and rot away. The aloe vera prefers indirect sunlight or a situation where, like, I have it on my patio and it receives about 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours of sun, and then it's in the shade for the rest of the time. So that's fine too, as long as it's, you know, sort of a balanced. It just you just don't want to leave it in the sun all the time. So make sure that's a consideration when you're if you're potting it or planting it, that you've chosen a good place for it. When you are harvesting the fronds, leaves, whatever you want to call them, you want, like I said, you want to pick the one closest to the soil. What it will do is it will start sending out, and this is why I decided to start harvesting. And I'm going to make some face cream. It's going to be another video, because you can see it has a very large one here, but it started to send out all these little ones. That means it's getting too much for this pot. So I'm either going to need to repot part of it or use part of it. It will start sending out smaller and smaller little fronds all over the place instead of getting these great big massive ones. If you're using it as a first aid, a treatment, like I said, you can just cut off the end, use it like a tube of toothpaste and squish it onto the thing. You just want to apply it to the sunburn or the scrape or small cut that you have for about 48 hours. Also the producing of the new skin cells. So you just want to keep it covered with it's really, really slimy, and you want to just keep it covered with that gel. You could wrap it lightly with some kind of breathable gauze if you want, because it will get on everything. So I'm going to show you a look at what it looks like when we cut off one of the fronds here. So I'm just going to choose one here in the fat. And immediately the plant will start to heal itself and will start closing the wound on its own self, a jar of it. And as it sits, it's going to get more and more gel and liquid. It sort of starts breaking down. So I'm preparing this for the skin salve. It's really, really hard to get it with no green. You can really try. What I normally do is I get as much of it off as I can, and I just let it sit, and then I sort of fish out the bigger pieces. But it doesn't bother me as long it's going to get blended up in the cream, so it's not going to be hard. But if it's something that really bothers you, you could push it through a sieve. It's really, really slimy. I don't know how I can continue to reiterate the sliminess of it. And so you want to make sure, aside from the initial knife of cutting it off of the plant, that if you're using a knife, use a butter knife, because it's so slimy, it's really hard to get a grip on. I tend to use my fingernails a lot, like I'll dig down in it to hold it down as I'm cutting it off. I have found, and like I said, there's really no right or wrong way to do this. You just do it however you got to do it to get it out. If you're trying to use a larger quantity of it for some sort of like facial preparation, or if you want to just have if you want to maybe take it with you on a camping trip instead of taking the plant. That that matter, let me back up. If you want to take it on a camping trip, you can just wrap it in foil. Or you could even some saran wrap and a rubber band, and it'll keep for a little bit that way. Especially if it's a big one, it won't dry out real fast. So what I'm going to do, and I found this is what works best for me. You use whatever way you want. Some people can make it really look really easy in books and stuff, but I always wonder what goes on in between the pictures because I have never been that successful. But you have this serrated edge here, and you want to make sure you remove that first, so you don't. It's not going to stab you or anything, but just get it off of there. I just use a potato peeler. That's all I'm using. Now you want to try to get as wide of a piece because whatever you can get off to begin with, the first few sweeps through is going to really benefit you because it's going to get more and more difficult to remove it. I'm saving my pieces and I'll come back and I'll scrape off whatever I can. Now I'm just going to, it's starting to it will start almost turning into a liquid. You have to work pretty quick here. Because once it starts doing that, it's almost impossible to do it. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut into pieces, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to work that situation. So just using a butter knife, you can see it's very jelly. You can see right through it. It's beautiful. It's so nice. Has that little piece of green on it. I'm going to dig my fingernail down into there. I'm just going to use this butter knife, and I'm going to try to just gently shave it off of the green as I can. I'm just using a little spoon rest. The reason why I don't want to just leave it out sitting is because it's starting to break down, and it will break down more and more the longer it sits there. So I'm just there's a nice big piece. And you can see just how slimy it is. I'm just going to put that in there. You can get a nice piece off that. You feel very victorious because you've saved yourself some work. It came off in one nice big chunk. These big fronds are nice to work with because there's a lot to grab onto. It's when you get to the little ones. That's why I tend to wait till my plant really needs help, and then I will start getting those really giant leaves. It has 3 layers.
Yes, this is production.
I'll be doing a separate video on how to make a topical face cream just for nighttime. It's not a medicinal one, it's just a face cream. See where I've cut off? There's a spot there. I'm trying to see if there's one I cut earlier because I've been working in here. You can see there's several here that I've cut, and they will start to sort of the edges will start to discolor, and it'll start to form like a thicker film over where you've cut it. Heal itself. That's probably why the miracle plant, because it heals itself. I would suggest this book, a pamphlet, and it's from 1979, so you're probably gonna have to look online somewhere. And there's a lot of new websites and stuff because a lot of new research has been done at A&M and various Texas universities I know have done a lot of studies. It's native, the aloe vera plant is native to North America, so it's been studied, I think, quite extensively over here. And also check out India and Iran have lots of herbal everything, and just lots of herbal practices, and you can probably find a lot of studies from their scientists and doctors as well. But the ancient Egyptian medicine plant aloe vera, and it was by Matt P. Skousen, I think is how you say it, and it was from the Aloe Vera Research Institute. And in the back, and the little book is pretty beat up, in the back there's a lot of medical references, and there's different research articles. A lot of these are looking at University of Texas, Journal of American Osteopathic Association, Minnesota Medicine. Here's one, Texas Dental Journal, Oral Surgery, Baylor University, some archives of dermatology, just all the different things that it has been used for. So if you can find this book, it's really helpful. It has recipes in it. It has all kinds of information and all kinds of the ways it's been used throughout history and the ways that it's continued to be used. Now you can see how it's starting to break down. We had those big solid chunks. You still see those, but you can start to see at the bottom. See if I can get a good way here. You can start to see it's getting more gelatinous and just breaking down. This one has been sitting here for a while, and it's really breaking down a lot. So what I'll do before I use this in any kind of preparation, I'll probably just let it sit for a few hours, trying to let it break down as much as I can before I need to use some. I have a hand blender, a little hand blender. You can probably use a hand mixer. Just gonna keep it in there, let it. It's gonna break down more and more. And a good way to, if you want to really watch it, is do a big chunk vertically like that. Just leave it, and you can come back and watch it. But I'm gonna have a separate video on the face cream. So if you watch this one, make sure you tune in for the face cream, because I'm sure you're gonna enjoy learning how to make that. So this has been Angie from Canterbury Trails Farm, all about the aloe vera plant. Thanks for joining us.